this point in time, I'd like to call this special meeting of the Middlesex County Board of Chosen Freeholders to order. Salute to the flag, Dennis.
Notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-10, has been complied with and shall be entered into the minutes of this meeting.
Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Galante.
Here.
Freeholder Delina.
Here.
Freeholder Polos.
Here.
Freeholder Rios.
Here.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Here.
Freeholder Valenti.
Here.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Here. The clerk will read the resolution relative to the establishment of the cap bank.
Calendar year 2011 resolution to increase tax levy cap limits and establish a cap bank, NJSA 48:4-45.14, authorized public hearing to be held on Thursday, April 7, 2011 at 7 p.m. in the Freeholders Meeting Room. Whereas
I'm sorry.
Whereas the local government cap law, NJSA 48:4-45.1 et sec, provides that in the preparation of its annual budget, a county shall limit any increase in its levy in said budget to 2% unless authorized by resolution to increase it to 3.5% over the previous year's tax levy, subject to certain exceptions. And whereas NJSA 48:4-45.14, 15A, provides that a county may, when authorized by resolution, establish and when and if necessary utilize a cap bank for the allowable increase from the 2% cap limit to the 3.5% rate within the current year or in either of the next two succeeding years. And whereas the County of Middlesex finds it advisable and prudent to increase calendar year 2011 tax levy cap by up to 3.5% over the previous years in the interest of promoting the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. And whereas the Board of Chosen Freeholders hereby determines that a 1.5% increase in the tax levy cap bank for said year, amounting to $2,986,549 in excess of the tax levy cap bank otherwise permitted by the local government cap law, is advisable and prudent. And whereas the Board of Chosen Freeholders hereby determines that any amount authorized here and above that is not utilized as part of the final budget tax levy shall be retained as an exception to the final tax levy cap in either of the next two succeeding years. And whereas NJSA 48:4-45.14 requires that a public hearing be held thereon, and whereas this board wishes to hold said public hearing on Thursday, April 7, 2011 at 7 p.m. in the Freeholders Meeting Room, County Administration Building, New Brunswick, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Chosen Freeholders of the County of Middlesex, a majority of the full authorized membership of this governing body affirmatively concurring that in the calendar year 2011 budget, the final allowable tax levy cap of the County of Middlesex shall, in accordance with this resolution and NJSA 48:4-45.14, be increased by 1.5%, amounting of $2,986,549, and that the calendar year 2011 county budget for the County of Middlesex be approved and adopted in accordance with this resolution. And be it further resolved that any amount authorized here and above that is not utilized as part of the final budget tax levy shall be retained as an exception to the final tax levy cap in either of the next two succeeding years. And be it further resolved that a public hearing shall be held on Thursday, April 7, 2011 at 7 p.m. in the Freeholders Meeting Room, County Administration Building, New Brunswick, New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the clerk of this board shall cause this resolution to be published in the Home News Tribune, East Brunswick, at least 10 days prior to the date of said public hearing. Be it further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution as introduced be filed with the Director of the Division of Local Government Services within 5 days of introduction. And be it further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution upon adoption with the recorded vote included thereon be filed with the Director within 5 days after such adoption.
Thank you, Margaret. At this point in time, I'd like to open to the public a hearing on this resolution, which is to increase the cap bank. Anybody from the public?
Motion to close.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Ron Rios, seconded by Freeholder Valente. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. The clerk will read the resolution confirming the actions of the Board of Chosen Freeholders that previously adopted a calendar year 2011 resolution to increase tax levy cap limits and establish a cap bank.
Confirm the actions of the Board of Chosen Freeholders that previously adopted a calendar year 2011 resolution to increase tax levy cap limits and establish a cap bank, NJSA 48:4-45.14. Whereas the Middlesex County Board of Chosen Freeholders previously adopted a resolution in accordance with the requirements of the local government cap law, NJSA 48:4-45.1 et sec, relative to the preparation of its annual budget. Whereas the Board of Chosen Freeholders conducted a public hearing on April 7, 2011 at 7 p.m. in the Freeholders Meeting Room as authorized on March 24, 2011. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Chosen Freeholders of the County of Middlesex, a majority of the full authorized membership of this governing body does hereby confirm the action taken on March 24th, 2011, increasing tax levy cap limits and establishing a cap bank pursuant to NJSA 48:4-45.14. Be it further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution upon adoption with the recorded vote included thereon be filed with said director within 5 days after such adoption.
I need a motion to adopt resolution confirming the establishment of the cap bank.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Ron Rio, seconded by Freeholder Valente. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Palante,
Yes.
Freeholder Delina,
Yes.
Freeholder Polos,
No.
Freeholder Rios,
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro,
Yes.
Freeholder Valenti,
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes.
The 2011 budget summary was advertised in the Home News Tribune on March 27, 2011, and posted in the lobby of the County Administration Building, calling for a public hearing on Thursday, April 7, 2011. The 2011 budget detail was sent to each public library in Middlesex County in accordance with NJSA 48:4-8.
Clerk will read the summary of the approved budget.
Summary of approved budget. Total of general appropriations for 2011, $405,422,000. Less anticipated revenues, $85,329,000. Amount to be raised by taxation, county purpose tax, $320,093,000.
At this point in time, I'd like to call on the County Administrator, John Polomina, to go through the 2011 budget for us.
Thank you, Freehold Director. Before I get started, I'd like to just recognize the department heads, the men and women of Middlesex County who've been working diligently since last August in the development of the 2011 budget. Needless to say, these have been challenging times, and they will continue to do so. And I also want you to bring that message back to your folks who've also assisted in this effort. The purpose of this presentation tonight is really to go over two fundamental components of the 2011 budget. One is obviously the financial aspect and the financial challenges that we've had. And second, and probably more important, is an overview of the direction that this Board of Freeholders has directed me as your county administrator, as well as the management team, to pursue, both from a financial standpoint as well as an operational standpoint. And when doing this, obviously, recognizing the need to serve the residents and the taxpayers of Middlesex County. When you look at the 2011 budget, and if you look at your package, Exhibit 1, in 2011, the gross operating budget compared to 2010 is actually $828,000 less than it was in 2010. Unfortunately, in 2011, and in 2010, we saw a further erosion of those revenues that are so critical to the day-to-day operations of Middlesex County, to the tune of $12.2 million. And what I'd like to do is get into the details behind both the expenses and the revenue so you have an understanding of where we've been and where we are today. The net impact is what you see as far as the amount to be raised by taxation, which is the $11.4 million. But I want to make the point that if we didn't have the erosion of the revenue, that by what we did through our operational expenses, our salary and wages coming down, this year's budget would have been flat. Unfortunately, you've got a little less than 1 penny increase. Let's look at some of the details. Salary and wages year over year. In 2011 over 2010, we've cut $1.5 million of salary and wages. And that comes from the hiring freeze that we have had in place over the last 2 years. It takes into account the 125 positions we've removed in 2011. And more importantly, we've reduced overtime by 10%, over $1 million year over year. From an operation expense standpoint, we've reduced operating expense by $1 million. Some of the key areas where that took place were in human and social services to the tune of $350,000, law and public safety about $200,000, and about $500,000 in health and public services. We reduced the operational expenses, the day-to-day cost of expenses that we can control, the Board of Freeholders can control, from 2010. Unfortunately, we've been impacted by the same things that municipalities, county, the state, and federal government is facing, is the fact of the spiraling costs of pensions and health care costs. And another key component this year was the significant cut in state aid for mental health. When you look at the revenues of the $12.2 million that we've lost in revenues, they come from a number of areas. Unfortunately, the state continues to cut the funding to Middlesex County. And you can see that may have to do this verbally, so I do apologize for the unfortunate situation with the screen. But when it comes to the key revenues that unfortunately we've been cut at the state level, we've lost $1.9 million in funding for our inmates at the Adult Correction Center. For most of you who may not be familiar with this, what the state has done is for the first 15 days a state inmate stays at our facility, they stay at our expense. After that, then they start paying. So in order for the state to cut expenses, what they did was they keep them there less than 15 days. And they've also stopped the flow of inmates into the facility. We lost $1.9 million of revenue there. We were cut $878,000 in state cuts into mental health in 2010. Our county clerk, as you know, with the economy being the way it is, we've lost over $792,000 in revenues that we would normally get through real estate transactions in 2010. Interest income over $750,000 that we lost. Again, everybody knows with their bank accounts, the interest on your money isn't worth what it once was. If you're lucky, you get 0.5%. That's cost us another $750,000. And ultimately, from motor vehicle fines, we've lost $660,000 there as well. The last item on this chart relates to grants. At this point in time, we have about $6 million that we have not gotten any approval from. Half of that comes from state DOT funds for construction projects that we don't believe we're going to see this year. The other half may materialize for the Ryan White HIV funds. If that happens, there's a corresponding revenue expense component there. But at the end of the day, I think you recognize the challenge that we have, that even though we've been able to get our house in order relative to our operating expenses, there's very little control we have over those revenues that come from other sources that we have no control over. That's the primary driver resulting in that $11 million increase for the amount to be raised by taxation. But I think to really gain an appreciation, you can't just look at 2010 and then 2011. If you go back to 2008 and you look at the challenges we faced since the economic downturn, the problem has been compounded threefold. When you look at from the standpoint of the expenses from 2008 to 2011 have gone up $8.3 million, which is less than 2% a year. The reality there, though, is that from 2008 to 2011, salary and wages have been cut by $7.5 million. Our operating expenses have been flat since 2008. Flat. But unfortunately, once again, the mandated expenses as it relates to pension and health care costs, when it comes to the contributions on traffic fines, let me go back to the expenses. Expenses have been up 8.3. Our revenues down by $30 million over the last 3 years. $30 million. Let me tell you the components of that. As I mentioned, salary and wages. We've driven $7.5 million out of our salary and wages. As people have left the payroll, we have not backfilled. We've asked the department heads to work with each of their team members to drive costs down by consolidating responsibilities. There's been a hiring freeze since 2009, and again, the overtime reduction. But the reality is mandated expenses have increased during that same period of time by $15.8 million, okay? So even though we've gotten our house in order, even over a 3-year period, where our salary and wages have been down by $7.5 million, our operating expenses at the Board of Freeholders get control are flat because of the rising cost of pension and health care costs, the fact that state cuts in education have taken place. And what we've done is we've infused $1.6 million into in both the vocational and the county college in order to cover some of the shortfall. In reality, the state has cut over $3 million in funding to our educational facilities over the last 3 years. From a revenue perspective, the $30 million is made up of the following components. You'll see over $8 million is related to state and federal cuts. The county clerk's office, over $7 million in 3 years, all related to the economy. The fact that it's heavily dependent upon transactions in real estate because the economy is slow, $7.3 million of recovering revenue has been lost. In 2008, we used $6 million more in surplus than we're using in this year's budget. Interest income's down by over $3.5 million. And again, the issue with the surrogate, which again, depending on the area, sometimes you see the revenue because of the wills that are being probated, they come and go. But at the end of the day, the driving force in the county budget over the last 3 years has been the loss in revenues of $30 million and the spiraling increase in mandated costs that the county has very little control over. And I think what you see here is the fact that those things that we've been able to get our hands around, we've done so. Now, when it comes to the revenue stream, it's tough to make up $30 million of lost revenue over a 3-year period. One of the things that the Board of Freeholders has pursued very aggressively is shared services with other municipalities and with other counties. And in spite of the fact that we've been able to generate $4 million of new and recurring revenue that doesn't come from the taxpayer but comes from alternative sources to provide relief to the taxpayers, $4 million of new recurring revenue was established through our partnership with Monmouth County, with the Juvenile Services, which generates $2.5 million a year for the next 10 years, and our newest shared service arrangement with Mercer County and their juvenile facility of another $1.3 million a year, plus the medical examiner. Each of those components of shared services has brought in $4 million of recurring revenue, which is very critical. But the reality is this, that the economy is not going to turn around overnight. The fact of the matter is that we have to find new ways of providing those kinds of essential services, important services, programs and services as set forth by the Board of Freeholders and serving the public. We need to do things fundamentally different. Part of the objective that was set forth going back to last year was a direction set by the Board of Freeholders under the leadership of Freeholder Director Chris Rafano, who basically had asked me as the county administrator to work with all department heads to look at how we fundamentally find ways of transforming how we do business that ultimately provides greater efficiency and greater cost savings to our residents. it comes in two components. One is the cultural change, how we do work as a team. And the reality is, if you look at the way we are currently organized, if we are going to drive further costs out of the county operations, we fundamentally have to change the way we are organized. Today, we have 35 or so departments that work in silo type of environments. Even though there's some partnership, the collaboration is disengaged because there's so many departments working so many initiatives that sometimes they are not working collectively together, and I think there's an opportunity to gain efficiency there. If you look at many of the processes that we have today, there are many manual and labor-intensive processes. One of the things that we're doing very aggressively is to bring technology into the workplace to automate those processes. And fundamentally, the redundancy aspect of the fact that when you have 35 departments, all who play a role and have their own administrative staff that address human resource issues, payroll issues, benefit issues, that rather than having 35 individuals or 40 individuals or 40 different procedures and policies out there that are sometimes inconsistent, it's time to rethink that so in order to gain greater efficiency. What you have here today is the organization structure that exists under the Board of Freeholders. The points I made earlier play into the fact that when you have this many departments driving the programs and services that are being offered to the residents, there's clearly opportunities to gain additional cost efficiencies by looking and changing the way we do business. What was presented back to the board in December, and the board has asked us to proceed with the transition, was an operational structure that's fundamentally different than the way we do business today, going from 35 departments to 5 key departments that ultimately bring like functions, common activities, common roles together, so you could eliminate many of the redundancies or broken processes that may exist, to focus in on those services and programs using new technology that will allow us to operate more effectively. Unless we make this type of change, you will not be able to drive the cost of county operations much lower. So what does this all mean to Middlesex County? From an operational standpoint and a cultural standpoint, it will reduce the cost of operations, drive operation efficiencies, foster innovation, and obviously enhance the quality of services. We're seeing that today, and I'll give you a few examples. By simply putting in place a new agenda meeting process called Legistar, it will save over $100,000 just in paper alone in 1 year's time. Okay? Furthermore, it puts a process in place that at any point in time, whether it's the public or whether it's the management team or staff, they will know the status of resolutions, have the ability to work through the process with the public, provide greater transparency. The other benefit is the fact that within the Legistar system, it provides also video streaming of meetings, and this was brought up by one of the freeholders, that in addition to the fact that online, on our website, you'll have a copy of the resolutions and the meeting minutes, you will also have the video that takes place, the actual coverage of what takes place at a meeting associated with each and every resolution. That is part of the new system. There's a cost savings relative to paper generation. There's a cost savings because now you have a process in place where rather than 5 or 6 people touching the same process, maybe you just need 1 or 2. The other thing that we're working on now in our personnel department and with our CFO department is when it comes to health, HR functions and benefits. As you know, most of your departments are going through a transition on how they do timekeeping, where it was heavily manual intensive. That whole process is being automated, and though we're going through some growing pains right now, it will save significant time and resources to the County of Middlesex. So at the end of the day, when you look at the journey we've been on over the last 3 years, we need to continue to put an operational and organization structure in place to best serve the residents of Middlesex County. We need to move to what I call a priority-based budgeting process so that we can lay out to the Board of Freeholders all of the programs and services that we currently offer today. They will ultimately make the determination and set the policy on those programs and services that we will continue to provide. Once that's in place, and at the same time you've essentially optimized your operational capability, then the revenues that you take in will provide greater opportunity to provide a broader range of services. That's why it's so integral to from an organization standpoint to the changes that we need to make, because at the end of the day, the economic challenges that we face aren't going away tomorrow. $30 million in revenue over the last 3 years. That's $10 million of lost recurring revenue year after year. And from an expense standpoint, the mandated expenses, $15 million. It's a daunting task. So what tonight's budget reflects a flat operational budget, shows a reduction year over year of $828,000 in expenses. And I think that as we move forward, that we'll continue to find ways of driving costs out of county government while we continue to provide the same level of services that the county residents expect from us.
Does any freeholder have any questions of Mr. Palomino about the budget? Any questions? Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to open to the public hearing on the approved 2011 budget. Anybody from the public?
Motion to close.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Valente. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, at this point in time, we need the clerk to read sheets 40 and 41.
Be it resolved by the Board of Chosen Freeholders of the County of Middlesex that the budget hereinbefore set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated of the sums therein set forth as appropriations, an authorization of the amount $320,093,000 for the county to be raised by taxation, and certification to the County Board of Taxation of the following summary of general revenues and appropriations. General summary of revenues. Number 1, general revenues. Surplus anticipated $3,694,000. Miscellaneous revenues anticipated $81,635,000. Amount to be raised by taxation for county purposes, $320,093,000. Total general revenues, $405,422,000. Summary of appropriations. Number 3, general appropriations. Operations including contingent, $312,877,689. Capital improvements, $2,425,000. Total debt service, $61,460,702. Deferred charges and statutory expenditures county, $28,658,609. Total general appropriations, $405,422,000. It is hereby certified that the within budget is a true copy of the budget finally adopted by resolutions of the Board of Chosen Freeholders on the 7th day of April, 2011. It is further certified that each item of revenue and appropriation is set forth in the same amount and by the same title as appeared in the 2011 approved budget, and all amendments thereto, if any, which have been previously approved by the Director of Local Government Services.
That's it, right?
Yes.
Okay. At this point in time, I entertain a motion to adopt the 2011 county budget.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Valente. Now it's time for comments by freeholders. Freeholder Barrett Belmonte.
Thank you, Director. First of all, I want to thank John and his staff, especially for his vision on the way we will do business in the future. And certainly to Al and his department, his vast experience. And we know that it's been a tough ride. So we thank you very much for that. We need to be proud that we have maintained services throughout the county for all of our residents, the elderly, working poor, sick, everyone. That is important. That's what we believe in as Democrats, as freeholders. We have always believed in helping people, and we have not forgotten that. Special thanks to, I just want on VOTEC and the Middlesex County College. Unlike the state, and I won't mention any names, we understand and know the importance of a quality education. And my special thanks to you. Thanks again for the freeholders. Many, many towns and the state for many, many years balanced budgets, saved money by not paying into the pension plans for public employees, the police and fire. I especially want to thank my department heads in personnel, public health, hazmat, mosquito commission, extension, superintendent of schools, college, VOTEC. All of my departments in the county reduced their budget. Every single one came through. They didn't fight. They understand the issue. I thank you, all of you, one and all, for all of that. A special thanks to all of the county employees. As we've been working, I'm a former labor leader. When we talk about saving all of that salary money through attrition, what that means is our clerical staff of county employees are doing more and more work. As these people leave or retire, we don't hire anyone. The staff that's left has to pick up the slack. Every single department has experienced a loss in the clerical division. So I want to thank all of the county employees for everything that they have done. A special, I guess, thanks is the way that our budgets are done. And that is each one of us on the Freeholder Board have had the opportunity to give suggestions and input throughout the entire budget process. For all of those reasons, there's no other thing that we can do but support and thank everyone that's sitting on the dais and everyone that's in the audience for this very efficient budget. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeholder. Freeholder Pete Delina?
Yeah.
For comments?
Huh?
Any comments on the budget?
No, I think John did a good job, and with the freeholders working in the committees, I think they did a good job. I just hope that everything works out. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Freeholder. Freeholder Pauls? This is out of the room.
I think we wait.
Yeah.
We could wait.
Yeah, why don't we take a few-minute break right now?
Well, you want coffee?
Freeholder Pauls?
I'm sorry, Director. I
That's
think
okay.
I took some water down the wrong way. Why don't you go to somebody else and give me another minute? Thank you.
No, we're okay. We'll wait. We'll wait a few minutes, Jim.
Well, it doesn't matter. Somebody else can go. Is there any particular order? You could continue. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Director. I prefer not to disrupt the meeting. Would you give me another minute? Thank you. Go ahead.
Freeholder,
I would just make a motion that we take a recess for 5 minutes.
sure. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can't trust you as well.
Ayes have it. Okay, we ready to
You
resume?
gonna count the ballots?
Freeholder Paulus?
Thank you, Thank you, Director. I'm sorry you had to delay the whole meeting for this. I apologize. But I also don't want to keep coughing into the microphone. So I'm going to yield my time to someone else temporarily. Go ahead, Director.
At this point in time, then why don't we just call on Freeholder Tamaro?
Thank you, Director. I want to thank Al and John Palomino for doing a wonderful job. This is my first budget as a county freeholder. I know how difficult budgets are. I have to do 14 in Edison, although I was only elected 13 years. For some reason, we had to do an extra budget in between. But it's never easy, especially in these tough economic times. With revenues decreasing and our mandates increasing, it doesn't bode well, for anybody. And unfortunately, every budget is going through difficult times. I look at our surplus, and it's only $3 million. Last year's Edison surplus was $14 million they put into the budget to keep it a zero tax increase. So, but they were able to generate that through tax sales, and they did a transitional budget, and they were able to accomplish that. No one wants to see a tax increase, especially now, but but we want to also keep our services, and it's a slight increase this year. And I want to thank our department heads, John Reiser, whose birthday is tomorrow. So I wish him happy birthday. And George Verides, I want to thank them for working with us and trying to do what they can to keep their budgets down. We have a lot of capital improvements coming up, and there's one tomorrow we're breaking ground on, and it's the corner of Ernston Road and Amboy Turnpike, which started actually the design in 2005, but it's all federally funded dollars that is paying for it. Our department works with municipalities to install lights on corners and do a lot of other different improvements in the municipality. So, which are good things, and we need to keep moving them forward to make, our streets safe for the residents who live in them. So I will be supporting this budget. It's never easy. It's never easy to support a budget that's going to have a slight tax increase, but bearing that all that what's going on, it's unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeholder. Freeholder Blanquita Valente?
Thank you, Freeholder Director. First of all, I want to express my appreciation to Al Kuchunkas and all the department directors for their Herculean effort in trying to keep this budget down. I know that in human services, the numbers of the revenue that we spend, it's down by some, but don't forget that the people that we serve are people who are disabled, people who are very needy, and it goes from children to older folks, and the same thing with the Department of Senior Citizens that we have under the direction of Peg Chester. It has been very difficult, and it's not going to get any easier with what is going on at the state level and with our economic crisis statewide. So I want to echo Carol. she expressed it very well about this incredible job that has been done in getting this budget together. And I know, as Charles just said, you know, I will support the budget. I know that it's going to raise taxes somewhat, not a great deal, but it's difficult times that we live, and there are lots and lots of needs out there, people that need our help. So with that, again, my hat off to those that put this budget together. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeholder. Does anybody know where Freeholder Polis went? Well, at this point in time, prior to the Deputy Director speaking and myself as Director speak, oh, Freeholder.
Thank you, Director.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I got a bad bug, and I will do my best to make my comments without trying to interrupt too much. And I appreciate the indulgence of the board. As most of you may be aware, I've been opposed to this budget since its introduction earlier this month. And it's a simple situation. It's just a matter of a difference in opinion with respect to how I believe a budget should be developed, what a budget needs to be, and what the county can afford to do. I'm a father. I have 3 small children. We run a small budget for our home. I'm a small business owner, like many of you may be in your own life or personal life. It is true that we're in a very tough economic time. But the fact of the matter is that it isn't something that just came across with a gust of wind and slapped us in the face. We've been in a tough economic time since 2008. The writing has been clearly on the wall since when Freeholder Director was, Craybill was still here, that our budget was going to be in a very, very difficult position that year and in subsequent years. In fact, he reached out to many of us, me personally, and sat with me and said, we're headed for very difficult times. We need new ways, creative ways to do business. We need to figure out ways to increase revenues, ways to reduce costs. Unfortunately, and again, it's just a difference of opinion with respect to myself and my colleagues, I don't believe that we've done the right things over those 3 years to effectively stem against the increases that we've seen. Last year, we endured a $14 million tax levy increase that was only buffered by a $14 million reduction in state open space, in our county open space money. So effectively, it was a 0% tax increase. But realistically, it was a $14 million tax increase. This year, I assume, although it hasn't been discussed publicly, that the open space tax is going back up to 3 cents. So effectively, to each and every one of you and every resident in the county, you're not going to only be enduring an $11.5 million county purposes tax increase, but an additional $14 million in open space tax that you didn't have to pay last year. So effectively, you're paying $25 million this year. I just think that that's too much. We can talk about planning and reorganizing and do a PowerPoint presentation to talk about the future, and I think those are all great things. And some of us have been talking about that for 3 years. The word zero-based budget wasn't used by the county administrator in his presentation, and I'm not sure if that was on purpose or by design, but some of us have been saying since 2008 we need a zero-based budget to really effectively understand what this county needs to operate. I have a different way of doing budgets, having been a former mayor. You plan ahead 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ahead. You develop a long-term attrition plan. You work by it. It becomes your Bible. You figure out ways to reduce and cut without having to do it last minute. To me, it's just the way to do business. We can perhaps be proud of the fact that we've cut $5.5 to $6 million out of the budget in 3 weeks. But some may ask the question, if you could do that so effectively, why was it in there to begin with? These are the kinds of questions that come when a zero-based budget is created. These are the kinds of questions that are also posed when you bring individuals to the table who are not intrinsically involved in the operations day to day. which is again why I've been calling for the last 3 years that we create a public body, a public task force consisting of people from our Rutgers University, from our MBA program, from our corporations, experts in the field of finance, and we have so many of them here in Middlesex County, to sit with us and talk about how we can make a better budget. I still don't understand, with all due respect to my colleagues, why that continues year after year after year to be rebuffed. And although these are wonderful ideas and new thoughts for consolidation, we've never done them before, and the question becomes, how many other new ideas and great considerations could there be if we bring great minds to the table to share them with us? We don't take advantage of our institutional knowledge here in Middlesex County. And I think that that's a disservice to really the residents and to the way that we do the budget. It's not a personal issue. It's a fundamental disagreement with respect to how to operate a budget. I firmly believe that you can be extremely socially responsible, yet fiscally responsible at the same time. There is no reason in the world why this budget shouldn't be a budget with no impact on the taxpayers. There's no reason why this budget over the last 3 years hasn't been driven down each year in significant ways to provide relief to our taxpayers. There are families, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't need to tell you this, who are literally out of work, who are losing their homes, who can't afford to pay their rent, who have lost jobs. There are union people here today who should know that the best. People are out of work, underemployed, and unable to pay their bills. Foreclosures are at an all-time high. There isn't a family or a small business in Middlesex County who has the ability, as we do, to say, well, we tried our best, but this is what we have to do. We're going to just raise some more money. I think any small business or any parent, any father, any mother struggling to make ends meet would love to just be able to go to the bank and create some money. We effectively do that when we raise taxes. And I just think that we've long passed the point of where we can ask our taxpayers to do that. And I think that we have an obligation not only to drive the costs down and reduce the burden on the taxpayers, but do more to help our municipalities. And if we drove unnecessary costs down in a true fundamental way, we could do one of two things: continue to reduce the burden on the local taxpayer, or effectively use those resources to help our municipalities reduce the burden on the local taxpayer through shared services, through providing additional services at the county level. There is more than one way to reduce the burden on the local property taxpayer. That's what I see county government's responsibility. That's why I got involved with county government 15 years ago, and still believe today that we're capable of doing it. We just are not effectively doing it yet. Reorganization is a wonderful thing. In fact, at the beginning of the year, we were told it was going to save us $2 million. I don't know where that is, and maybe we'll see that at some point in the future. But the bottom line is that we're going up $11.5 million, and it's not necessary. We've had revenues drive down, that's true, but we haven't taken control of our fiscal house in the 3 years that we've been experiencing that. And that's what's creating the problem that we face today, quite simply. So I can't be satisfied with the fact that we're $500,000 under cap. I can't be satisfied with the fact that we're asking the voters and the taxpayers of this county to allow us to go 1.5 times above the allowed state cap of 2%. I just think that that's not the thing that we should be doing this year. I don't think we should have done it last year. So I hope you can understand, those of you who may disagree with my position, that I'm being consistent in my thought process as to what I think this county government should be doing. And there are a multitude of ways that have been pointed out in prior meetings on increasing revenues and decreasing costs that we just have not implemented. And most importantly, and here's where I think we have a significant divergence in opinion, I'm not even suggesting that all of those ideas are good ideas. But what I have suggested is let's get people in here who know what good ideas are. And let's open up the doors to our fiscal house and let people give us their best input, their genuine ideas and thoughts about how we can do business better. I simply can't accept the fact that the only way that we can do that with all due respect to our administrator, is to have him meet with our department heads and come up with a new PowerPoint and a reorganization plan. That's not effective management. Having taken quite a bit of that in college, I can tell you that human resource management is about going beyond the envelope, outside of the borders, and bringing the intelligence to the table to help you make informed decisions. And we're reluctant, again, to do that. I also think that these are things that should have happened a long time ago. And I'm troubled by the fact that, again, we face a budget. 3 weeks ago, it's announced that we're $5.5 million over cap. In my humble opinion, that, again, is not the proper way to budget the county. We've known for a long time where we're at, and these issues should have been dealt with long before this budget was introduced 3 weeks ago. So I respect those who differ with that opinion. I hope they equally respect my opinion as well. It comes down to a fundamental disagreement with what the county can afford to do and what the burden should be on the taxpayers of this county. And we have, ladies and gentlemen, the ability, and have had the ability, to drive this budget even lower. And we have had the ability to create new revenue sources. I've said time and time again, and I'm sure someone tonight will refute that or disagree with it, or perhaps even come up with some reason why it won't work. But it's never been discussed publicly. It's never been analyzed. And new revenue opportunities are things that we need to take advantage of. At the end of the day, we have a responsibility to make sure that we have our fiscal house in order. And again, and I stress this, it doesn't have to be done sacrificing our commitment. I share Freeholder Barrett's ideals about what we're supposed to be doing as freeholders and the democratic way of providing good social services to our residents, to the needy, the sick, the infirmed, the elderly, the children, our education system. All that can still be done by driving this budget down. And I submit to you that it can be done even better. Last but not least, we continue to drive ourselves deeper into debt with growing capital expenditures each and every year. In the 3 years that was mentioned by the administrator, where our revenues have driven down $30 million, we've made a budget decision to expend nearly $200 million in new capital projects during that same time period. It just doesn't balance. And anyone who has ever had to balance their checkbook, work through their business, or make ends meet in their business or in their home would simply understand that you can only afford to pay for those things that you have the money to pay with. And it's time that we stop doing it on the back of the taxpayers. It's time that we stop writing checks that we simply can't cash. It's time that we stop putting additional debt burden on future generations simply to fix budget gaps and holes within our budget. And we've done that as well in the last couple of years with the sale of major assets that the county owns simply to fix budget holes. Our engineering building, our parking deck. You'll see how our numbers have increased for lease payments and parking and in payment for office space simply because we don't own these assets anymore. That's my simple view of why I have to disagree with this budget. And again, it's simply on the merit of my view of what fiscal appropriateness is for the county, which again could differ widely from my colleagues. I'll respect their view. I hope they respect mine. And if you all have any ideas or suggestions on how we can do things better, I could certainly tell you that I'll be open to them as well. Thank you, Director.
Deputy Director Ron Rios.
Thank you, Director. I too would like to thank Al Kachinkis for a job well done. For over 43 years, Al Kachinkis has worked for this county with the utmost character, responsibility, and integrity. I also thank all of your staff for the hard work and dedication that they did in this budget process. I'd like to thank all the department heads, directors, and the management team for this difficult budget. I'd also like to thank John Palomino, our business administrator. He is our county administrator. We are in a unique situation here in Middlesex County. We have the luxury of having an administrator like John Polomina, who had over 25 years in the private sector in an upper management position for a national known company like AT&T. He's a private business owner as well. He's a former freeholder who's interacted with mayors and council members and was also a former council member. And he certainly has the business acumen to be county administrator. And he runs the day-to-day operation the way a county administrator should run it, just like a business. I'd like to thank him for his hard work and dedication. Last month, Freeholder Polos attacked our finance department, and he personally attacked our administrator. And I take exception to those remarks, no matter what employee it might be. They were disparaging remarks against Mr. Polomina. I thought they were unprofessional. And to try to destroy his integrity and his character, I think is disrespectful, shameful, and just outside wrong. Just outright wrong. If a supervisor, an elected official, or as in this case, a freeholder, has an issue with an employee, I think there's a proper place and a proper time for that. Not in the public forum to gain political points. We've been working on this budget for over 6 months, and I know I've had my input on it with the director, with the administrator, with Mr. Kachinkis, with other employees, and it's been a hard work. But that's what we are elected to do. There have been lots of meetings, and it's been a tough budget, but we met the challenges. As far as task forces, I think it's just another layer of government that is unnecessary. I think it just shirks our responsibility, because that's what we're elected to do. The help that we need is for the economy to flourish. We lost over $30 million in revenue since 2008. And does that have an impact on our budget? Absolutely. Does anyone really want to increase a budget or increase a tax? No, no one does. But the budget is our responsibility, and we don't take it lightly, and we meet that challenge. We've had many meetings, and Freeholder Polos just didn't get engaged in the process. I never got a phone call, and I sit on the finance committee with the director, and I never got a phone call for his input. Yes, these are tough decisions, and yes, this is a tough budget, but I'm not going to jeopardize the health and safety of all our residents, plain and simple. I think it's important that we drive that message to our residents. Our utmost concern is the health and well-being of all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Director. I have a statement that I'd like to read. This evening, the Middlesex County Board of Chosen Freeholders will vote on the adoption of the county operating and capital budgets for 2011. Before I begin my remarks, I want to acknowledge and thank Comptroller Al Kachinkis and County Administrator John Polomina, as well as all of the department heads and their staffs, for their hard work and dedication during this lengthy budget process. John Polomina has provided to you tonight an overview of what this Board of Chosen Freeholders has already accomplished both financially and operationally. As you've heard, Middlesex County is making critical changes in how it is organized and how it conducts business. We have and will continue to utilize new technology and streamline programs and services to become more efficient and will reduce the cost of all county government. This board will continue to be aggressive as we move forward in 2011 and beyond. This transformation of Middlesex County operations will enable us to continue to achieve our goal of offering high-quality services that our taxpayers can afford. There are a few key points from this presentation that need to be repeated. First, our operating budget is lower by over $750,000 from last year. In fact, the total operational expenses for 2011 are lower than they were in 2008. Further, we have slashed our salaries and wages by $7.5 million over the last 3 years. As a county government, we continue to be burdened by mandated expenses such as pensions and health care costs, which are out of our control and have increased by more than $10.5 million since 2008. And I cannot underscore enough the negative impact state aid cuts have had on our critical services. Aid for our county college and vocational and technical schools has been cut by $2.86 million. State aid for the Raton Bay Mental Health Center has been cut by more than $570,000, or 43%. State aid for public health services, including special child health services, has been cut by $1.1 million. Transportation state aid, which helps us serve our senior and disabled residents, has been cut by nearly $500,000. Coupled with these cuts are significant revenue losses that continue to impact our ability to offer critical programs and services. Due to the significant downturn in the economy, the county has experienced a reduction of more than $12.2 million in revenue over the past year and more than $30 million over the last 3 years. We have recognized this and have aggressively sought new revenue sources, including many shared services opportunities. Over the past 3 years, we have forged relationships with Monmouth and Mercer counties that will bring in $3.9 million in new revenue to Middlesex County every year. Moreover, we are working with our municipal partners to consolidate certain functions at the county level, lowering the cost of service for our taxpayers and generating new revenue for the county. We, as a board of freeholders, believe that the taxpayers of Middlesex County demand that we, as elected officials, deal with the real challenge we face, and that is implementing priority-based budgeting. This process compels the freeholders to take a very critical look at each of the services and programs we offer to decide where we need to allocate our resources and available tax dollars to best serve the people of Middlesex County. That is why the operational and organizational changes are so critical. We use the same systematic and thorough approach when conducting our annual review and long-range planning for our capital budget. We must balance flat or decreasing debt service with the need to maintain critical infrastructure. Middlesex County will not sacrifice the safety of our residents by not maintaining our roads, bridges, or other critical facilities. We will not sacrifice the quality of life our residents have come to expect by not maintaining our parks and recreational facilities. At the same time, this board is committed to a balanced approach to funding our capital program that has proven to be responsive and responsible. Our policy since 2008 has been that as we incur new debt for projects, we retire old debt in order to maintain or decrease the amount of debt service each year. In fact, this year, our annual debt payment is $2 million less than it was in 2008. Our disciplined practices have earned the county the top credit rating from leading agencies. Only 67 counties out of 3,000 counties in the nation have that distinction. This 2011 Middlesex County budget reflects our continued commitment to driving down operational costs and increasing efficiencies. It reflects the will of the people who expect quality services at prices they can afford. It represents a blueprint for sustained savings and cost efficiencies, not only for 2011, but for the future. We will continue to work on behalf of the people we serve, and in doing so, will ensure that Middlesex County continues to be the greatest county in the land. Now, I do want to mention a few things at this point in time, and in response to what Freeholder Polis said. First of all, you know, the taxpayers in this county, taxpayers in this state, I think are tired of elected officials who have fluff but no substance. They're tired of half-truths, innuendos, and in many cases, no truth at all. I want to respond by some of the statements made by Freeholders. To insinuate that this Board of Chosen Freeholders, that this county of Middlesex has no plan for its budgeting, has no plan for its operation, is not true. False. To insinuate otherwise is an enormous disservice to the taxpayers of Middlesex County, enormous disservice to the freeholders here, and an enormous disservice to our department heads and their staff. It is wrong. The statements by Deputy Director Rios are accurate when it comes to a task force as the savior of the county. We are elected to do a job, to make the hard decisions. We're not afraid to do that. Now, I don't believe or feel as though we need help. Maybe Freeholders does, but we've been at this for a long time. Our county government's has an outstanding record. We have the second lowest cost per person in county government in the state of New Jersey. Our bond rating is AAA. I said that before. Only 67 counties have that in the country. And you get it because you're responsible. You get it because you do the right thing. You get it because you keep your debt service down. Every time they rate us, they make reference to the fact that Middlesex County has a low debt service. And that's good government. To sit here and to say otherwise is wrong. Now, I want to mention this. When we unveiled the budget, I specifically asked every single freeholder to go back to their departments, to come back with additional cuts, to reduce and drive down the cost of our county government. And I have to say this, that some freeholders did. And I'm going to tell you who it was. I further reduced the my departments by $177,000. Freeholder Rios, who has law and public safety, further reduced his operational expenses by $965,000. Freeholder Barrett Belante reduced hers by $151,000. Freeholder Dolina by $34,000. Freeholder Tamaro by an additional $10,000. That was for the planning board. And Freeholder Valente by an additional $20,000. There's one name I left out, and that's Freeholder Paulos. He did not reduce his by 1 penny. When the request was made by me to help drive the cost, to save the taxpayers, didn't reduce it 1 penny. Now, to sit here and to say that we could do more without any explanation or any hope of explaining to us how we're going to drive those costs down, I think is a disservice to the taxpayers of this county. And I want to respond to a few other things. He makes reference of revenue sources. Revenue sources. His idea of selling naming rights to county facilities. Okay, that was the proposal when it was mentioned by him at the meeting when it was our budget was introduced. Well, guess what? What he didn't tell you is that for 2 years we tried. 2009, we went out with RFPs, which is the way we would handle that. We went out in 2010 with RFPs. Guess how many people responded? None. None. We talk about advertising as another revenue source. Guess what? The advertising that we have on our buses that was supposed to be part of this revenue saving the county budget in 2010 was $16,373. So I just think that it's time that, as elected officials, we stop with the fluff, we stop with the sound bites, and we really put our best foot forward and do the responsible thing. And let's talk about the capital budget. As I said before, our debt service payment is $2 million less this year than it was in 2008. We have a responsibility. More than half of our capital budget is to repair bridges that have been determined to be in need of repair, to fix roads that have been determined to be in need of repair, to improve intersections because they've been determined to be in need of repair. Those are safety issues. Those are things that must be done. Those are things that the county government should do. And it's interesting also that Freeholder Polis did not mention one bit that he has projects in the capital budget too, the capital budget that he now complains of. I find that a little bit hypocritical. What to me is the most frustrating thing of this whole process is the failure of him to return to us additional cuts in his budgets like every other freeholder did. We did it. It was necessary. And to say that we need to do more, I think you got to start with your own departments. If there was a need to do more, why wasn't that delivered? Why weren't additional cuts made? And I think that just says a lot about the individual and what he stands for. And I am pleased and proud to vote for this budget. Again, want to thank John and all of my colleagues, Al, department head staff. You guys did a wonderful job under difficult situations. Keep up the good work. Okay, call for the vote.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte,
Yes.
Freeholder Delina,
Yes.
Freeholder Polos,
Well, I'm glad you didn't take it personally. As I said before, and I've certainly presented enough options for the last 3 years and presented them again this year.
Freeholder, under the rules, there's no further comment at this
Freeholder
point?
Director, there's no
Before the
rules.
vote?
The rules do not cut off open public debate. You can show me where it says that. I'd love to see that.
Mr. Kelso?
So that's not the case, Freeholder
Who cuts the
Polis.
debate off?
Under Robert's rules, roll call vote was called, and the vote has been commenced to be taken. And under Robert's rules, once that's the case, there's no further comment. Specifically, a member has no right to explain his vote during voting, which would be the same as debate at such time. The debate has been ended, the discussion has ended, and now the roll call vote is being taken.
Margaret?
Freeholder Polos,
I have a point of order. Mr. Kelso, I'm just curious why that's never been brought up in the 15 years that I've been on the Freeholder Board when everyone comments when they vote. Is there a particular reason for that? I'm just curious.
You have every opportunity to respond during the debate, but once the roll call's been taken, that's typically the way, when the vote has been taken, there hasn't been further comment.
But I'm just curious, for the last 15 years, everyone's commented when they voted. So I'm just curious, is there a particular reason why tonight of all nights, given the fact that the sequence of speakers was orchestrated to allow the director the last word, that all of a sudden, for the first time I've seen you bring a parliamentarian book to a meeting, and why? I'm just curious.
Point of
Director
order,
always says-
Director, point of
The
order.
point of order, excuse me, you can't
Continue
interrupt the
with the
point of
roll call,
order.
please.
Excuse me, you
Roll
can't,
call, Margaret.
it's a point of order. I'm asking a question. Mr. Kelso, as a point of order, am I allowed to ask the question?
I'm answering
No,
your question.
well, then I think you need to tell everyone that I'm entitled to an answer.
No, we're giving you the courtesy of an answer.
That's very nice.
Whether you're entitled to it or not, the fact is you've asked for it and we'll answer it.
I appreciate that.
Under our administrative code, we follow the Robert's Rules of Orders. When there's an issue and a point of order brought up, it's mandated for us to go to Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules is clear on this issue. Whether or not in the past, as a matter of courtesy, comments have been permitted to be had because they were not taken during discussion is not relevant to the fact that when a point of order is raised and Robert's Rules is clear, that we must follow them.
No problem. My points have been on the record publicly for 3 years. I don't need to defend it tonight. I vote no on the budget.
Freeholder Rios,
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Valenti,
Yes,
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Valente. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
I gotta go.